Off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. We hear he is a wizard of whiz, if ever a whiz there was.
The Wizard of Oz. Even if you're not too familiar with the series of books, mostly everyone knows about the 1939 movie starring Judy Garland. It seems everybody has seen this movie at a young age, and that's why it lasts such an impression on us. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, and what makes it so special is that it really is timeless. Even though it was made in the 30s, you can't really tell because it takes place mostly in the fantasy world of Oz. And not to mention, it was shot in color, except for the Kansas scenes. Most movies of the time were in black and white, so it's really funny how many times I've come across people who think that it was made in the 50s. But it hardly matters, because every generation that's seen it is mesmerized. It's imaginative, entertaining, funny, and is undated. This is what classics are made of. Because there were 14 books, there were several film adaptations over the years, even before the classic we all know. But it wasn't until around 1985 when all these books eventually became public domain. That's when the movie Return to Oz came about. The plot was based off of two of the book's immediate sequels, The Marvelous Land of Oz and Ozma of Oz. And even though it follows these books closer than the classic version followed the first book, it still keeps Dorothy's slippers made of ruby rather than silver. So in many ways, it's considered to be the long-postponed sequel to the first movie. So as a kid growing up in the 80s, I saw both movies back to back, and because of my young sensibilities, I expected the second one to be similar. But instead, I got one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. To begin with, the first movie was kind of scary. The Wicked Witch and the Flying Monkeys. For something that's considered to be a kid's movie, it was pretty intense. But then Return to Oz is like a sick joke. It begins with a long period of silence with Dorothy laying in bed. She's not singing and she doesn't look happy. That's what every kid would look like when this movie came back to haunt their dreams. It's not a musical at all, it's just depressing. Dorothy's taken to a doctor, she's sitting all by herself in some cell room, being strapped down to a table, about to be given electric shock therapy. It's horrible. She escapes and ends up back at the land of Oz, but this time we wonder if she's just crazy and imagining all this stuff. Besides, she's talking to a chicken. Yeah, that's her new sidekick, no more Toto. So she goes on this little memory lane trip and finds that there's barely anything left of the Yellow Brick Road and the Emerald City is in ruins. The Tin Man and the Cowardly Lion are both turned to stone, and the Scarecrow's captured by some stop-motion rock monster called the Gnome King, which is really awesome. Now there's a bunch of masked maniacs called the Wheelers who want Dorothy dead. This is one of the many aspects of the movie that brought children to tears. There's also the deadly desert that turns people to sand. Dorothy meets another Scarecrow sort of character called Jack Pumpkinhead and a robot named Tick-Tock. These become her new friends in her journey to restore her old friends. That's basically the gist of it. But there's also this mean old bitch named Mombi who has the ability to change her head. Of course, she also wants to take Dorothy's head and keeps her imprisoned. And the culmination of this, and probably the most frightening part of the whole movie, is when Dorothy has to steal her magic powder to bring to life a moose head called the Gump. Yeah, don't ask. But anyway, she's about to take the powder from Mombi's head, and then this happens.
Dorothy girl.
Holy shit. If you saw this as a kid and had nightmares over this scene, you're not alone. So they bring the Gump to life, attach it to a sofa with wings, and make their escape. What follows is probably one of the craziest things I've ever seen.
If I had a stomach, I know I'd be sick.
In the final act, Dorothy and her new friends try to rescue the Scarecrow from the Gnome King. This is where the movie gets real good. The Gnome King actually negotiates with them. Dorothy has a lot of bold decisions to make. Then there's this nightmarish display of special effects, lots of crazy stuff going on, but it's pretty kick-ass. When you actually see the Scarecrow, it's not makeup like in the classic movie. It's more like a mask with a permanent grin. I don't know why, but every shot with that face in it just makes me laugh. All in all, it's a great movie. Fantasy movies today are all CG, so it's nice to look back and see something with those grand old 80s effects. The Gnome King is a fascinating villain, and everything else is a fun, dark ride. If you had the same experience as I and remember seeing this in the 80s, I say it's worth a revisit. If you're a newcomer, I still say check it out, but it's pretty bizarre. Oh yeah, the rating. Well, how about 4 lunch pail trees out of 5?